Trump killed the electric vehicle market in the United States, scrapped the subsidies, crashed sales by 30% in a single month. And now Mark Carney is turning that chaos into Canada's strategic advantage, building the very industry America just abandoned. On February 5, 2026, Carney unveiled a new national automotive strategy. Not a press release, not a list of promises, a full industrial doctrine for a sector that supports 500,000 jobs and contributes $16 billion to Canada's GDP every single year. If you appreciate in-depth analysis like this, hit that like button and subscribe to stay informed on the stories that truly matter. To understand the scale of what Carney just did, you first need to see what Trump did. Since April 2025, 25% tariffs on Canadian-made vehicles. Not on an adversary, on America's closest ally, the country it built an integrated auto industry with for over a century. Parts cross the border up to 8 times during the production of a single vehicle. Trump taxed every crossing. But the tariffs were only half the picture. In July 2025, Trump signed the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill and eliminated the $7,500 federal tax credit for electric vehicles. The credit that drove consumer adoption for years, the credit automakers built their entire investment plans around. The result was immediate. EV sales in October 2025 dropped 30% year over year. Fourth quarter, down 46% from the third. 2025 became the first year in 6 that electric vehicle sales in the United States actually declined. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, Stellantis, all scaling back their electric programs. Ford CEO openly stated EV sales in 2026 could be cut in half or more. At the same time, American automakers were quietly retreating from Canada.
Auto manufacturing in Canada has been sputtering. The number of cars built here down by 1 million vehicles compared to a decade ago.
There's just this general long-term move away from Canada from U.S.-based automakers.
According to a new report from nonprofit think tank The Trillium Network, U.S.-based automakers Ford, GM, and Stellantis produced 56% of the vehicles in Canada in 2016. Last year, they produced just 23%.
56% in 2016, 23% last year. American automakers didn't just reduce their presence in Canada, they effectively abandoned it. Trump declared war on electric vehicles and on Canada at the same time. Carney didn't wait for the damage to settle. He built a response.
But that trade relationship that once was a great strength has now become a serious vulnerability.
One sentence, and it captures everything. What was Canada's greatest economic advantage for decades, deep integration with the American economy, has become a liability. Carney didn't just acknowledge that reality, he built a strategy that turns that vulnerability into a new industrial model. The strategy rests on 5 pillars. First, massive investment in manufacturing. $3 billion from the Strategic Response Fund, plus $100 million from the Regional Tariff Response Initiative, all directed at helping the auto sector adapt, grow, and diversify to new markets. And the key instrument? The productivity superdeduction. Companies can immediately write off 100% of their investments in equipment, buildings, research, clean energy technology. Canada's marginal effective tax rate on investment is now 13%, 4.5 points lower than the United States, the lowest in the entire G7.
Put simply, we're making Canada the best place to invest, the best place to build, the best place to build clean.
Second, emissions policy. Carney scrapped the Trudeau-era mandate that required 100% EV sales by 2035. Instead of an unrealistic obligation, he introduced stronger greenhouse gas emission standards for model years 2027 through 2032. New targets? 75% EV sales by 2035, 90% by 2040. This is not a retreat from climate action. This is replacing symbolic policy with a mechanism that actually works. Third, consumer incentives. A new $2.3 billion program, up to $5,000 for a fully electric vehicle, up to $2,500 for a plug-in hybrid. Price cap of $50,000, but that cap does not apply to vehicles made in Canada. That's not an accident. That's a deliberate mechanism.
That's why our government is launching a new $2.3 billion electric vehicle affordability program. Canadians who purchase or lease a battery electric or fuel cell electric vehicle will receive up to $5,000 and up to $2,500 for plug-in hybrids priced up to $50,000. To support the Canadian auto industry, this $50,000 cap will not apply to Canadian-made EVs or Canadian-made plug-in hybrids. And those incentives will only apply to vehicles produced in countries with whom Canada has a free trade agreement.
Fourth, charging infrastructure. $1.5 billion through the Canada Infrastructure Bank. Carney said it plainly, wherever you live in Canada, charging your vehicle should be as simple as filling your gas tank. Fifth, the trade regime. Canada keeps its 25% counter tariffs on American vehicles, and it's launching a new tradable credit system. Companies that manufacture and invest in Canada earn credits. Companies that want to sell vehicles without producing here have to purchase those credits. But Carney is not closing the door on the United States.
Again, to be clear, Canada continues to favor a zero tariff regime with the United States in autos because we know that will deliver the strongest North American auto industry. But if the U.S., through the CUSMA review, insists on some form of auto tariffs, we'll ensure that companies that sell vehicles in Canada are strongly incentivized to produce in Canada.
This is the critical moment. Carney is not shutting the door on Washington. He's saying, we want zero tariffs, but if you insist otherwise, we're ready. And that readiness is not a bluff. It's backed by the lowest investment tax rate in the developed world, billions in manufacturing support, and a system that rewards those who build in Canada. Now look at the logic. Trump scrapped EV subsidies. Carney introduced the most generous incentive program in North America. Trump is trying to lure factories south. Carney created the lowest investment tax rate in the G7. Trump wanted to isolate Canada. Carney signed a deal with China and a memorandum with South Korea. Every move Trump makes, isolate, pressure, punish, gets a mirror response. Diversify, invest, compete. And this is where the story gets bigger, because Carney isn't just reacting to Trump. He's building something larger. While American automakers were leaving Canada, Japanese automakers stayed.
Meanwhile, Japanese automakers have picked up the slack. They now build the majority of the cars in Canada, about 77%.
Toyota and Honda, through thick and thin over the last 40 years, have never retreated from Canada.
Researchers say the federal government should give rewards and incentives to those companies that are growing their domestic manufacturing footprint.
Let's focus on those companies and they've shown their commitment to Canada. Let's show some commitment back to them.
77% of production, Toyota and Honda, companies that never left through 40 years of ups and downs. Carney's strategy is the answer to that recommendation. Reward those who stay. The credit system does exactly that. But there's a bigger picture. Canada holds some of the world's largest reserves of critical minerals, nickel, lithium, cobalt, the raw materials that go into every electric vehicle battery. Carney's strategy isn't just about subsidizing car purchases. It's about building a complete production chain, from the mine to the battery, from the battery to the vehicle, mines to mobility. Over the past several years, battery manufacturing plants worth over $40 billion in combined investment have been established in Ontario and Quebec. And the China deal is not a surrender. It's a precise, limited instrument.
They have struck a deal themselves with China recently. This is very much along similar lines. It's very discreet. It's very precision oriented towards, in Canada's case, seafood, agricultural products like canola seed, and on the other side, Chinese EV tariffs, and really what we call a tariff rate quota, a very small amount of vehicles overall that are being allowed in. And for the Canadian consumer, a lot of those are probably just going to be Teslas that happen to be made in China, for example. So I don't think it really will be that far-ranging.
49,000 vehicles a year in a market of 1.8 million. less than 3%. But in return, China dropped tariffs on Canadian canola, seafood, and agricultural products. The United States itself struck a similar deal with China just last summer on semiconductors and critical minerals. Trump called Canada's deal a betrayal, but it's not betrayal, it's diversification, and it's exactly what every smart country does when its main trading partner becomes unpredictable. Here's the bottom line. Trump bet that Canada would submit to pressure, that an auto sector supporting 500,000 jobs would force Ottawa into concessions, that Canada had no alternatives. Carney made a different bet, that Canada can compete, not against America, but beyond America, not against the market, but ahead of it. Canada is not reacting to a crisis, it's turning one into an industry, not improvising, planning, not asking for permission, acting. If you want clear, unfiltered analysis of how Canada is building its economic independence, this is the channel for you. Subscribe to Canada Today for fact-driven breakdowns, real context, and stories the headlines don't explain. And if you found this video useful, hit like, share it, and let others see how the balance of power is changing in real time.